welcome everyone. We're going to run through our 3PL brand management today and some of the improvements that we've been working really hard on to get pushed out. So we're really excited to share a lot of that information with you. Real quick, some housekeeping here. On the next slide, we'll go through introductions. We'll talk about what we're seeing in the current market right now, uh, the environment that other 3PLs and fulfillment centers are facing. And then we'll dive right into the live 3PL brand management demo. And then, of course, we'll save some time for Q&A towards the end. If you have any questions as we kind of work through some things, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. We've got some folks that are monitoring that. So if we don't catch them right away, we will make sure that we try to catch those on the end. And of course, if we can't get through all of them, we'll be absolutely sure to make sure or to follow up with those answers. And of course, you can always book time with us one-on-one to dive deeper into any questions, concerns, or ideas that you might have, as well as find out more about our products as well. So I'm Jeremy Lee. I'm the head of sales over here at Sifted. Alongside me is Kevin Knowlton. He's our director of AI engineering. Uh, he's one of my favorite people at this organization over here because he takes some of the crazy ideas that I come up with and that others come up with around here and actually makes them into reality. And he's one of the people that's helped make this brand management tool come to life. So we're real excited to walk through that and show you all what we've got.
Yeah. So like Jeremy said, just to give a quick intro on myself. Kevin, director of engineering, and like Jeremy said, a lot of my job is making the dreams come true. We get to partner closely with a lot of 3PLs and direct shippers to see kind of the pain points happening in the industry. And then I get the pleasure of building it. And then Jeremy's like, if you're going to build it, you got to live with it in a live demo. So here we are. But I'm really excited to walk through this today. And yeah, I've been learning a lot, building a lot, and got a lot of exciting things to show.
Got to show off what you built. All right, so these are some of the headlines that we've been seeing over the last 6, 8, 12 months or so. And there's a lot of things that are happening in the market right now that's causing the environment to get a little bit tougher for fulfillment centers. And when the majority of the revenue that you're generating is coming off of operational margins, you really have to keep track of everything that's happening and make sure that you're maximizing those types of things. So we've seen some major closures out there. We've seen Amazon now introducing, or I should say, opening their doors to their full suite of supply chain solutions, which is only going to increase competition. I know it's got some folks that are feeling a little uneasy about what ultimately is the end game out there, and of course, it's also put pressure on other carriers that are out there as well. And then, of course, we're seeing continuous changes in the economic stability out there, from everything from fuel costs rising to just general inflation hitting every aspect of our business. Everything's getting more expensive, margins are getting tighter, it's becoming harder to run an efficient business and make sure that you're profitable out there. So this is exactly why we've put together the brand management tool that we have. And as we kind of move forward here, a lot of the things that we were hearing, if we want to click to the next slide, um, this is what we were hearing from folks as we kind of went out and started, gathering some information, asking some questions. Everything from on the sales side, hey, it's taken us forever to get proposals together. If we're in a competitive situation, it might take us days, sometimes weeks to get something put out. And you're still looking at like a generalized like cost averaging. I've heard from folks that, hey, we just didn't have time to even bid on some business last year. And so we just had to pass on it altogether. Other times I've heard folks say, we put together what we thought was a strong bid, but ultimately it ended up being more costly than what we originally expected. And so, we were either running extremely tight margins or, no margins at all. Finance has been struggling to, reconcile and close out, months and, understand, are we, invoicing correctly? Are we capturing everything that we're being charged for? And spending all that time in spreadsheets plus looking at invoices that might, span multiple weeks, trying to reconcile those back or accrue those costs, has been incredibly difficult. Client success, we're hearing from, brands themselves that are out there shipping that they want to have more transparency once they hand off, the operations of their business. They kind of lose the connection of what's happening in the industry. And then without that visibility or line of sight into, how things are going, it really kind of creates a friction point. And so we want to make sure that we're creating an opportunity for the fulfillments and 3PLs out there that they have the ability to reduce that friction, but actually take a more proactive approach to the relationship and build those strong bonds that can go on for many years. On our operations side, of course, you know, you need to do all the things that you do on a daily basis, and you need all the tools in order to help you do it. So, are the carriers that I'm using the right ones for the business that we're doing? Where are we winning and losing? Do we have the rates that we need in order to be competitive? Really understanding how our performance stacks up to make sure that we're delivering the best, experience for the brands that we're servicing. And of course, having all that information in one location so that we're not, bouncing around through, disparate systems trying to cobble things together and get that line of sight. So we've heard all of that, right? And we've taken all of that and we've put it together into that single source location. The combination of our uh, sifted platform with our brand management, functionalities inside of here is going to deliver on all of this stuff. So as we kind of move through here, some other folks that we've talked to, and what we're starting to hear is that, hey, we didn't realize this existed. And so, we looked around, couldn't find anything. And so now we're trying to build it ourselves. Well, here's us with the megaphone here. We want to make sure that everybody knows that we have built this stuff. We have put it together, and it's built off of, what we're hearing from folks like yourselves that helps us go out and like actually put together those tools that mean something to you. We can build things that we think are cool, but if they're not actually usable on the other end, then it really doesn't matter. So your input, your thoughts, your ideas, your needs are what drives this every single day. So please keep all of that information coming. So here's a little, evolution for quite some time. We started out offering, parcel spend optimization solutions for direct shippers and 3PLs. Think about this as like giving you the insight on how to like run your business as a whole so that you had a clear line of sight. Um, from there, we realized there's actually a bigger gap in the market with all those things that I mentioned that we're hearing uh, that really things weren't designed for 3PLs, and a lot of the tools that we had, if we just looked at them in a slightly different way, they would have so much more impact in how you run your business on a daily basis. So that got us thinking, and we looked at it and we said, hey, we started developing all this stuff. And so here we are, um, you know, reintroducing brand management. We've been out in market for quite some time now, but we're continuing to, improve and build it out. Our main goals here to ensure that we can help you win business faster, create those proposals in real time. So while you have the attention of the prospect that you're talking to, you can get the deal done on the things that make the most sense. You can retain business by providing a, superior customer experience, having those, clear line of sight, that transparency, running those quarterly business reviews, but more importantly, having proactive recommendations on how that brand could be run more efficient and have a better experience for their end customers. Of course, automating the financials on the back end, streamlining any sort of invoice detail processing, reconciling, any of the costs back and helping you accrue those costs back to where they actually need to be. And of course, managing your overall performance and spend to ensure that, the brands that you're servicing are running as efficiently as possible, but also your business as a whole is profitable and ensuring that, you're going to continue to grow over time. So there we go. So what's inside of there? We've got the ability to, help you configure, and we have company configuration, really allowing you to like set up your child accounts for the brands that you have down there, margin optimization, our pricing generator, brand billing details, and the SiftedAI Brand Platform, which is going to give you, the ability to give access to your brands with a markup clean version so that they can actually see all of that line item detail. So rather than me continue to yammer on about, what we have inside, we're actually just going to dive right in here because that's really what everybody came here to see anyhow.
Yeah, great. So let me hop around over to our platform. I'll swing into brand management. So have the Sifted platform pulled up here. And so as Jeremy had, kind of talked through that we have, quite a bit of history working with direct shippers, solving all sorts of problems of bringing carrier data together, helping folks run their business, whether it's a direct shipper or 3PLs. And so want to kind of start by through that evolution a little bit, looking at some of the historical analytics reports and things like that that we have, where you get that insight into your entire business and kind of show that angle of company configuration of, if you're a 3PL and you got multiple brands that are being invoiced off of those carrier invoices, how you can use all the tools that we have, if the last 20 years of development, what that kind of how that ends up playing out within our platform. So just want to showcase in here this, again, having all of our shipping profile, having the visibility, but just showcase being able to break out those individual brands within it, being able to come in and say, I want all this, reporting and analytics and visibility as a 3PL and into my carrier invoices, and have those filters to drill into it. So we'll be using Kevin's farm equipment as an example. I don't know, Jeremy, if there's any other color commentary you want to add on that.
Yeah, really, this is, we've had this visibility and these analytics into like your business as a whole. We're taking it a step further by allowing like putting together the easy one click, allowing you to sort through all of your different brands to see how they're performing individually and where you can make, recommendations or tweaks or improvements to their business. This really allows you to, improve and speed up your, quarterly business reviews and be very targeted on what you're talking about and have that proactive relationship. So rather than having to go through and set a whole bunch of different filters and try to like figure out, am I looking at the right stuff? We can actually just give you those drill down visibilities into like your actual brands that you have just by clicking on that drop down and selecting which one you want to look at, and boom, everything in the platform adjusts to represent what is specific to that brand.
Yep, and have those filters follow you everywhere you're going throughout the platform. But from there, we get to we'll jump into brand management. All right,
That's
so
right. So this is and the newer sections over here. And so think about all these cards as all the different brands that you have here. But this is the infrastructure where we're really going to start doing some work for those brands, whether that be bringing on a net new prospect and putting together proposals all the way through, setting up invoicing and working through all of that. So I'll let Kevin kind of walk through, one of those processes here.
yeah. So before we jump into the kind of first prong of brand management, which is proposals, so your sales side of it, putting together a bid, I want to talk about the foundation of that bid and what everything that we see today is built off of. So I'll go into our manage carrier rates. So as a 3PL, we have to have that foundation of what's your relation, what are those agreements with your carriers, what are those rates, where your spin tiers falling. If there's any strategies that you're wanting to put in place in terms of how you're blending carriers together, maybe having a blended rate card. So here we have an example of a blended rate card, a little bit of FedEx, a little bit of UPS. And so I'll go ahead and open up that rate card so that we can see what all those prices are. And again, this is that foundation that we're going to be bidding off of, that any markups or markdowns would be applied off of. So we can go drill and see what those published prices are at a service weight and zone level, the discounted rates, and then as well as which carriers we're actually planning to put together in this blended rate card situation. And if there's ever something where you're going, I want to make a change, you can always come in, highlight multiple like an Excel spreadsheet, and make your changes. Like, hey, let's move this over to FedEx, and you kind of configure those rules.
And this is huge because when you're using multiple carriers, you really need to understand like where you're winning and losing, not just from cost, but also performance. So making sure that like the packages that you're manifesting and sending out with those carriers are the most economical and the most efficient as they possibly can be. And so being able to like put this together and blend like, okay, this is the rules and this is how we're going to leverage the carriers that we have inside of our network. And this is how we're going to prepare to go out and win new business. So this being the foundation of building any proposal that you have out here, it's already optimizing the carriers that you have your at the ability to use.
Yeah, great. So let's go and we'll use that blended. So we have a little bit of FedEx, a little bit of UPS, And we'll work with my favorite brand, Kevin's Farm Equipment, a fictitious brand here, but we're going to use this brand to go through the process of putting a proposal together. So what we hear a lot in the industry is that there will be a package level detail, maybe a order record, something that's put together from that prospect. So we'll pretend that this is a package level detail file from Kevin's Farm Equipment with some sample data, and we're going to be bidding off of that. So here's kind of a typical example we'll see where each record is one package. You've got very basic high level information. We don't know what accessorials are applying here. In a lot of instances, we may not even know how much the brand originally, how much Kevin's Farm Equipment paid for it, but we've got some tracking numbers, we got services, some very high level information. Maybe it's just zip codes. That's all that we've got to work with. So I've gone ahead and uploaded that file, but I can show just, I mean, it's a file upload. We get that brought in here, and we'll use AI to make sure that we have like we can understand the services and kind of map the services accordingly so that we apply the correct rates. Those rates we were looking at, we want to make sure that if that should be ground commercial, we're using ground commercial or residential, so on and so forth. But already walked through that and have that file we were looking at uploaded here. And there was somewhere around 100,000 shipments in there, just kind of for scale. And so from here, I'm going to go ahead and create our pricing. And this pricing is the central place that we can both generate billing details off of, which we'll get into later. But for now, we're focusing on building a proposal. So I'll go ahead and create some new pricing that is going to be on top of our carrier rates. So as you saw, I had some, let's kind of imagine with me, we've gone through a few rounds and maybe we've gone back and forth in conversation with Kevin's Farm Equipment. And so we're going to make a round three. So I had a round two, a round one, round two, and I'm going to go ahead and create a round three pricing. I'm going to select my PLD file, and then I'm going to go in and grab my FedEx plus UPS rates, that rate card we were looking at earlier. That's the set of rates we'll be using for this proposal. And then from here, we get into the ability to configure origins as well as service optimizations. I don't know, Jeremy, you want to give any color commentary on the origin zips?
Yeah, if you've got multiple distribution centers that you can leverage out there, um, oftentimes you can present either a single node, multi-node solution out there. But this here allows you to drop in as many nodes or which nodes that you like to use, and then rearrange them by order so that if there's a tie between, some of the packages that say, hey, they could get there in the same amount of time between these two locations, then it's going to default to the one that is, higher preference on there. And so you want to order those in magnitude of maybe capabilities. So if you have a preferential location that if there is a tie is maybe more suited to handle the products that you're bidding on or has some sort of special capabilities, or maybe just is in needing to has more capacity right now. You can order those right then and there. And so it's automatically going to tell you where those shipments need to come out of and how you need to set up that network for this prospect here.
And then
And then as far as optimizing service types, like chances are, the brand that you're bidding on might be shipping out of just one location right now. And so they're having to use more of a express type service in order to reach their customers in the SLAs that they've set for themselves. With your multi-node approach, chances are that you can now reach a lot more of those locations in a more economical service. And so this is automatically going to do that. So if somebody was using a 2-day or a 3-day, they can now get there via a ground service or an economy service. It's automatically going to put that or highlight that and tell you, hey, there's some savings or some additional cost savings involved with moving this over. There was X amount of packages that were going via 3-day service that can now be delivered via ground, for example.
So I went ahead and created that. You'll notice there's a spinner icon. It gets that created, saves those preferences. We've got 100,000 packages to go rezone, reservice, reprice, and apply that rate card to. So it usually takes it 30, 45 seconds, but we can see it kind of working in real time behind the scenes, and we get our KPIs updated, and we're ready to start configuring that pricing and digging into margins. So we can see here, there's about close to 1.5 million that we had off of those shipments that were loaded. And in here, we can start drilling into all of our margin configuration. So what we've heard is that having the flexibility to be very surgical with margins is really impactful, but that's hard to maintain. There's a lot of data and it can be really messy. So it was really important that we have a great user experience here to where you can really configure, you can get very, very custom, very granular support, not only margins, but customizing dim divisors, setting minimums, as well as being able to drill down if weight specific margins, zone specific margins are important, being able to service that and in a way that is easily maintained. So
And if
a
you pop
couple,
that back open right there, I think something that's really important there is the ability between markup and markdown. So everybody wants to be able to get to a markdown process, and what that actually means is, markdown off of carrier service guides. Because if you're in a markup situation, every time the carrier starts to change things or change the rules, oftentimes I hear that you have to go back and like rebuild your pricing agreements and repaper those documents with the brands that you're servicing. So the markdown process actually is going to be a discount off of published, allowing you to negotiate better rates with your carriers and not automatically give away that margin in that process, um, and protect you in a longer way. We also give you the ability to customize your weight breaks. We know that not everything is going to fall into like a specific tier of weight breaks. So you can actually come in here and start saying, hey, maybe I only want this to go 0 to 3 pounds, and then 4 to 8, and then 8 to 15, whatever it is that you want to do. You can customize that however you want, so that as you're talking to different brands that have different needs, packages that are going to vary in sizes and weights and everything else, you can get very tailored to that. And so Kevin's going through here and just highlighting, multiple things and then applying them to everything. The thought of having to go through and fill out every single box sounds pretty daunting, or borderline. I mean, just not something that people want to do. So we've given you the ability to multi-select and fill in things like in bulk, of course, so that you can work as efficiently as possible. And he's rapidly clicking through here and just adding values to show you there's the capabilities in that experience. One other thing that we do to make this a little bit more efficient is templates. So if you have standard pricing or a set of like pricing rules that you want to have, or that you want folks to operate by, we can actually save those templates inside of here. And so every, new data set that you bring in, every new prospect that you have, you can instantly just click that template and apply whichever template you want to use, and it immediately deploys all the different pricing across all the different services and accessorials and et cetera. So really cool ways to customize, but also make things faster, more efficient. And as you can see, very quickly, we can start to, bill out and see, what are our profits? What are our net margins? Now we're just putting in, for the most part, 10% across most of this stuff. Um, as you get more detailed and you start making granular adjustments and things, it's going to take all that into consideration, given the packages and what else is inside of the data, and it's going to give you that actual number out there so that you can say, hey, okay, this is where we're at. This is what we're looking at as far as like profit. This is how much it's going to cost us to serve this customer based on the data and the pricing that we have in place, so that we have a good foundational baseline. How much do we expect to make? Okay, now we're ready to, kind of continue through.
yeah, yeah. I'll go ahead and hop over to our network summary because obviously we plugged in a handful of zip codes. I think I threw in 3 zip codes. So just want to be able to show that visually. It's from my perspective pretty cool to see how that plays out. We have a color coded map here where each dot represents one of those roughly 100,000 packages I had uploaded, and we can see kind of how those zones start to play out, and we can start seeing which distribution center is roughly covering each state. Obviously, there's going to be that tiebreaker scenario that Jeremy had talked to earlier, but being able to kind of see how that plays out, dig into not only the zones and the changes in zone. Obviously, we're seeing like there's an improvement in that average zone, and we can go drill into which service types ultimately won. If there was any optimization where like, hey, we're close for our customer, this can go ground. We can go see what those opportunities are. So down here, I'll grab our 3-day shipments. There's also some 2-day where we can see that originally this was 3-day, and then it ends up being optimized, and we get some number of shipments. So it looks like in this case, 13 of them went ground commercial, another 32 of them were residential, so they got mapped to a residential service and kind of handles that service optimization. we can get some visibility and insight into what that behind the scenes optimization, what that looks like.
I think this part right here is really important because I mean this is an advanced way to show, what your facilities are bringing to the table for a brand and how you're planning to service them. And like what this also represents is an improved customer experience that that brand can sit there and wrap their head around and say, "Hey, by making this, move to this partner, we're going to be able to service these locations significantly faster and at a lower cost than what we're doing currently out of our single location. So we can respond faster, we can get products there faster, that customer experience is better, the costs are lower. Everything is all green lights for helping us, grow and scale our business in the way that we want to. And if those locations aren't, exactly correct, we can still see that we've got some, zone 6 and some zone 5 shipments out there. Maybe you have another location that's maybe based out of like Utah or something like that, that might be, a little bit more suited to, cover that region right there. You can simply go back and add that location in there, regenerate it and say, hey, does this, solution or this scenario look a little bit more ideal for your case? And keep in mind, you can also run as many of these scenarios as you would like ahead of time. And because they go so fast, you can have multiple different options prepared before you ever sit down and have that conversation with that prospect.
You can always come in and edit. It'll rerun the model and refresh all the data for you. And so then from here, we can hop over into our margin summary. So we have a dedicated report to kind of visualize at a more granular level. Obviously, we had our pricing studio where we configured all those margins, and we can see at a high level the service impacts and accessorial impacts. But being able to go a level deeper and see some of the trends and charts and drill into exactly what's going on. And one of the visuals on here that, or one of the tables, I should say, that is really impactful in my opinion is being able to have our rate sheet, that baseline rate sheet that we talked about earlier, being able to see how that original rate sheet has been modified for margins and being able to come in and see where the brand's price is, where our price is, and what that profit is at a service weight and zone level. So I'll come over here to our zone 2 packages. We see zone 2 across all the weights and be able to follow through and see, maybe there's somewhere that we're going to sacrifice a little bit of profitability. So you can kind of see those trade-offs. Going to go red, obviously, if we're not profitable somewhere, but we put just 10%, so we can kind of see how that plays out by service weight and zone.
Yeah. And so again, when you're talking to those brands, knowing that they might have packages that cluster in certain areas, like weights, zones, those types of things, you know exactly how much room you have to play with based on like what you've put together so far. So as you get into a little bit of a negotiation and, try to figure out exactly what we need to do in order to win the business, hey, how far can I afford to go on this? And what's the overall impact going to be? And are there other areas that might be more ideal to offset that give the benefits to the prospect, but also ensure that you're still going to make the profits that you need to? One last thing that's on down there at the bottom is we've got rate failures there. So any sort of shipment data that comes through that has missing information or incomplete information, it's going to call those out and set those aside. It's not that we can't handle it, it's that it's missing pertinent information. And so these are good to be able to come back and say, hey, there were several shipments that we didn't have complete information on, and we're unable to price out. Could you help us better understand what these tracking numbers might have had inside of them, and then we can make those adjustments over here. So, not hiding anything. We have the full line of sight all the way down to what you can rate and what you can confidently talk about versus, hey, you guys provided us stuff that we weren't able to work with over here, and we want to gather a little more information just to make sure that we're covering everything.
All right, so we'll keep going through our reports here. I'll jump into our pricing proposal. So this is a space for markup safe analytics, being able to have a place to see what your brand's going to see, what that proposed cost is, and how it all breaks out. So very similar reporting that we had on the margin summary, but stripping out that profit and being able to have an exportable option that you can send off to the prospect, as well as that raw package level detail file, as well as any, just raw net rate. So this is again markup safe uh, deliverables that can be sent along as a part of the proposal.
Yeah, and a lot of time usually ends up being spent down here in the rate sheets themselves, where brands are going to be looking side by side to like what their current net rates are versus what you're proposing and putting together. And like this is usually where the negotiations like get down to like their final steps. So we can look through any service weight zone and really drill into like what's the most important, given that you can also see, on the last screen over there, like where you have the most room to move. You can be prepared to have that conversation. And again, because it can be so quick to make those adjustments, asking the simple question of like, all right, if we can make those adjustments right here and now, is that what we need in order to get the business done? Get the deal done while you have the attention of the prospects and provide that transparency for them.
All right. Anything else we want to show from a proposal, or are we ready to move on to billing?
I'd say let's go ahead and jump over to billing. Let's assume that we went ahead and we got the deal done.
Yep. So from here, we take this pricing, say this is for Kevin's farm equipment, this is our active pricing. And so we can come in, set when that's going to become effective. And so as new carrier invoices are rolled out, we're going to start automatically generating those billing details. And so I will go ahead and hop back over here. And you see we've got one that's activated. I activated round two. And we've specifically applied this to UPS. And I'll go ahead and show we have our brand billing. And this is really just our configuration, setting it up to make sure that Kevin's farm equipment is squared away to where we can successfully identify all of Kevin's farm equipment shipments, and then we're applying the accurate pricing. So I've already linked through just an account number, but there's all sorts of ways that you can get back to, identifying these shipments belong to Kevin's farm equipment. We want to make sure that we are appropriately invoicing, like shipments are being invoiced appropriately and kind of doing that reconciliation. And so, like I said, you go down to configuring these on a GL code level or reference fields, account numbers, however, whatever those marker identifiers are for the brand, have that set up here. And then ultimately, if you make a change to the margins, you tweak anything, or maybe it's your first time, we've just created it, we can just hit generate. It'll run here in the background for us, and then we can go into kind of a profitability view and see what's happening. So I'll go ahead and just hit view details. So go see we had a 10%, been working just off of straight 10% to keep things simple. But we have a dedicated uh, brand invoice details, or kind of this billing details page where we can come in and see how profitability is trending, go drill into each individual brand, check those margins, and be able to validate how everything's going. Down
I
with
think it's important to like that rule set that you put together. Yeah, we just had it set on like single account number over there, but it is not like single threaded. Like we can have multiple levels of if, thens, or and rules put in place. So if you don't have a single field that identifies and maybe you need to use multiple fields in order to identify that, we can, run those strings together to make sure that no matter how complex or how simple your separation of shipments are, we can accomplish what you need.
it. And then from there, being able to see all of the underlying detail, uh, get individual line items, again, slicing, dicing, filtering through this data, export it out. If you're needing to go push that into a financial system or have that automatically delivered to us, is something that will be set up as well to just push that out and get that into your system of record, or kind of wherever those details are going to go from there.
And this is the full line item detail out there so that every single line item charge that was hit on that package, the brand can see on the other side. And that data transparency is one of the things that I've found over the decade plus of doing all of this stuff that really builds the trust with the folks that you're working with over there. When you can see everything down to the individual line item and it checks off for like what you agreed to, that just solidifies that, hey, all right, we've got a good thing going right now.
All right. So I think for the sake of time, it makes sense to go ahead and hop into brand access.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, we got our pricing, we've sent out a proposal, it's active, we're generating our billing details, and we want to make sure that Kevin's farm equipment has great visibility into everything that is going on. So I'll shift gears. I guess before I pull up this platform, this would be the entry point for any contacts over Kevin's farm equipment. I'll show how you can manage and kind of configure those users over at Kevin's farm equipment in this case. So have the ability to come in and edit, add any users. We can send out invitations, bring them in, or we need to revoke that user's access. But really, this allows us to configure and manage that access per brand, per user, and get them invited into the platform. They're able to set up their own usernames and passwords and get access into it. And in addition to that, you can customize that brand access and what that platform is going to look like. Drop in. So we're pretending that we're this fictitious 3PL called Crop Chain. And so it's got some of our colors in there. We have a fictitious logo. And so again, all of that's going to show up over in the portal where contacts from the brand will be able to sign in and see how everything is going, be able to have the trending and visualization visibility into all the trends and everything that's going on here. I'm not sure if Jeremy, is there anything you want to add color commentary to that?
Well, I think what we're showing right now are some out of the box functionalities. We understand that everybody operates a little bit differently, and so our goal here is to have this brand access page be configurable to the KPIs and metrics and trends, those things that you want to make visible to the brands that you're servicing. Our goal is not to get between you and the brands that you're servicing. Our goal is to empower you with all of the tools to enhance that relationship with those brands. So again, continuing to gather feedback and guidance from you, the users, on what you'd like to see out here, what you'd like to add. This is another place where those invoice billing details can be pushed and landed to. So this gives you a more modern experience of, rather than trying to email out like a CSV file that may or may not hit size limits, you can actually push that to the brand access page, and that drives your brands into logging in and seeing how they're performing. They can pull down their invoices from there, and just streamline the entire process. So think about this as like not a set standard, but as more of a an open forum for you to like create that experience that you really want to deliver, and leverage this as a differentiator out there, or an added benefit to working with you by saying, hey, look, we've heard from other brands that we're working with that they want to have that increased transparency, which is why we've created this and why we provide this to all of our clients. This can also be, this is up to you, but you can also, add an additional cost for this type of access or visibility if you'd like to. Again, it just comes down to how you want to set up and how you want to operate your business.
Yeah, great. So moving on from that, I want to talk a little bit about the future, some items I want to kind of tease that are coming out in the future. And so definitely for us here at Sifted, we've been putting a lot of work into our co-pilot experience. And so being able to utilize AI to, in a natural language, not necessarily having to dig through the dashboards, but being able to use AI to do work, and to be able to have it do work for you. And so one of the things that it will be coming out is the ability to use AI to customize elements of this experience we've gone through today, for specifically on the side of generating a proposal. So no two proposals are going to look alike, and what those deliverables look like will differ. But the idea is that we'll be migrating this experience of customizing your proposals into brand management. So in this experience I pulled up here, this is a part of our Copilot product that's not generally available yet. This is in development. So again, getting an early look into some Copilot features that are coming, as well as what that's going to look like inside of brand management. So I built out this theoretical proposal completely from our Copilot chat. So over here, I asked questions about the proposal that I had generated. I had to generate these visuals for me. I could add any text. If there's language that I want to make sure is communicated to my prospect, I can build all of that and put that inside this dashboard. And then I have the ability to just come in, drag and drop, and build fully customized for yourself whatever that proposal needs to look like. And then we'll be able to come in and apply that branding on top of it, and then reuse that as a template over and over again, but give full flexibility to have control over what those proposals are. reusable, build it, reuse it, customize it. So kind of teasing that. So a feature that's coming soon. I don't know if Jeremy.
This is going to be really awesome. I mean, again, giving you that tailored experience, but also with the power of AI, having the ability to rapidly create those customized, visualizations and things that are most important to the brand, to the conversation that you're having with that brand. I'm loving it. Like everything that's coming out of our Copilot and the capabilities that it has, like continue to surprise me every single day.